Hello and welcome. You're watching Unplugged TV India. This is Alice Francis. Let's begin with today's top stories. Nawab Malik's judicial custody extended till March 21 in money laundering case. Seventh and last phase of Uttar Pradesh assembly polls conducted on Monday. 46.40% voter turned out till 3 p.m. CBI arrest former NSE CEO Chitra Ramkrishna. Russia-Ukraine war, NK Stalin urges PM Modi to help students continue their education in India. Russia announces ceasefire in Kyiv and 3 other cities for civilians to move to safer place. Modi calls Zelensky and Putin, discusses evacuation of Indians from Ukraine. Leading multinational companies started shutting down operations in Russia to show solidarity with war-torn Ukraine. Central Bureau of Investigation arrested Chitra Ramkrishna, the former CEO of the National Stock Exchange in New Delhi, after a court denied her anticipatory bail requested. The 59-year-old has been on the CBI's radar in connection with a probe involving former NSE employee Anand Subramanian. Chitra Ramkrishnan served as NSE's CEO between 2013 and 2016. Ramakrishna was accused of emailing a yogi who lives in the Himalayas confidential information about the National Stock Exchange. SEBI, in its order, discovered documentary evidence proving that Chitra Ramkrishna shared internal NSE confidential information with an unknown person by sending her correspondence to an email address from 2014 to 16. The voting for 7th and last phase of Uttar Pradesh Assembly elections was conducted on Monday. A voter turnout of 46.40% was recorded till 3 p.m. Voting in 54 seats across 9 districts began at 7 a.m. on Monday for 613 candidates, including Prime Minister Modi's parliamentary constituency of Varanasi. The highest percentage of voting was recorded in Mau at 24.74%, followed by Chandoli and Mirzapur. On Monday, a Special Prevention of Money Laundering Act (PMLA) court extended Maharashtra Minister and Nationalist Congress Party leader Nawab Malik's judicial custody till March 21. On February 23, Malik was arrested by the Enforcement Directorate in connection with a money laundering investigation. He was apprehended after a 5-hour interrogation at the Enquiry Agency's office in South Mumbai. The arrest of Nawab Malik in a money laundering case is linked to the actions of fugitive gangster Dawood Ibrahim and his associates. The judge ordered him to be held in judicial custody because the investigation agency requested no additional remand. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin has written to Prime Minister Narendra Modi urging the centre to find ways to enable all medical students recently evacuated from Ukraine to complete their education in India. Stalin, while acknowledging the efforts taken by the Indian government in bringing back thousands of students caught in the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, said he would like to draw PM's attention to the emerging needs to address the uncertain future faced by thousands of students who were studying in Ukraine. CM Stalin said that the current situation has already resulted in the disruption of their studies and also threatens their future careers. And that, given the current unprecedented situation in Ukraine, it might not be practically possible for these medical students to return to their colleges in Ukraine. Stalin requested PM Modi's urgent intervention in taking up the issue with the National Medical Commission and the relevant ministries. On the 12th day of the invasion, the Russian military proclaimed a ceasefire in Kyiv, Ukraine's capital, and 3 other important cities, Kharkiv, Mariupol, and Sumy, on Monday in order to open humanitarian corridors. According to the sources, French President Emmanuel Macron personally requested the decision so the passageways were open to given citizens fleeing the conflict safe passage. The protest lasted 11 hours. As Russian soldiers steadily advance, the outskirts of Kyiv are constantly under fire. Chernihiv, Mykolaiv, and Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city, are also being bombarded by Russian forces. In the meantime, the news comes as Russia and Ukraine prepare to have the third round of talks on Monday. After weeks of military preparations, Russia launched a war against Ukraine on February 24. So far, hundreds of people have died on both sides and thousands have been displaced as a result of the crisis. Earlier, Ukrainian President Zelensky urged his people to continue resisting while also pleading the West to tighten sanctions against Russia. Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday sought the support of both Russian President Putin and Ukrainian President Zelensky for evacuating hundreds of Indians stranded in the eastern Ukrainian city of Sumy amid intense fighting in the region. Modi first spoke to Zelensky and sought continued support from the Ukrainian government for ongoing efforts to evacuate Indian nationals from Sumy. During the 35-minute conversation, President Zelensky briefed Prime Minister Modi in detail about the conflict situation and the ongoing negotiations between Ukraine and Russia. Prime Minister expressed deep concern about the ongoing conflict and resultant humanitarian crisis. Modi reiterated his call for immediate cessation of violence and noted that India has always stood for peaceful resolution and of issues and direct dialogue between the two parties. Modi also spoke to Putin and stressed the importance of the safe evacuation of Indian citizens from Sumy as the earliest. Putin assured Modi of all possible cooperation for their safe evacuation. The phone call with Putin lasted around 50 minutes, during which the two leaders discussed the evolving situation in Ukraine. Putin also briefed Modi on negotiations with Ukraine. The main focus of India's evacuation efforts in Ukraine over the past few days has been the safe and secure exit of 700 Indians, mostly stranded in Sumy. Almost 16,000 Indian nationals have been evacuated across Ukraine so far, where the country is witnessing heavy shelling from Russia. Ukraine's President Zelensky called for fresh international sanctions against Russia on Monday, recommending a boycott of Russian oil and other Russian goods, as well as a halt to exports to Russia in response to the country's invasion of Ukraine. Sanctions implemented by the West in response to Russia's military invasion have already isolated the country to a degree never previously seen by such a huge economy. According to Zelensky, economic pressure on Russia should be escalated with an international trade boycott in effect. If the invasion continues and Russia has not abandoned its plans against Ukraine, then a new sanction package is needed for the sake of peace, Zelensky addressed, referring to a boycott of Russian oil and oil products in particular. He said boycott imports to Russia if they do not adhere to civilized rules, that they should not receive goods and services from civilizations, let the war feed them. Meanwhile, many leading brands across industries from entertainment to banking to motor vehicles and others have decided to suspend operations in Russia as a show of solidarity with Ukraine. Moscow has continued its military advance against Kyiv for 12 days now, displacing more than 1.5 million people in Ukraine who have been forced to seek refuge in foreign lands. At a time like this, the growing number of multinational companies existing in Russia, along with the horde of sanctions imposed by the West, is bound to dampen the country's economy. Bali welcomes first foreign tourist after COVID quarantine rule lifted. The resort island of Bali welcomed its first foreign visitors on Monday thanks to reduced coronavirus rules that no longer require arrivals to be quarantined, part of a larger loosening of restrictions in the Southeast Asian country as infections decline. Fully vaccinated guests can now escape the mandatory 3-day quarantine, albeit they must still stay on the island for 4 days. So far, over 50,000 Ukrainian refugees have arrived in Germany, according to a representative for the Germany Interior Ministry. More than 50,000 refugees who have left the fighting in Ukraine have been registered in Germany thus far. So far, 50,294 people have been registered according to the spokeswoman, with the majority of the registrations taking place at railway stations, particularly in Berlin. Belgian Green proposes extending nuclear plants. Belgium's Green Energy Minister said on Monday that the country should keep an open mind regarding extending the life of its surviving nuclear power reactors in a shift in opinion spurred by the situation in Ukraine. Thank you for watching Unplugged TV India. Please hit like, subscribe and share. This is Alice Francis signing off.